Okay, so today we're going to talk about congruence, and we've been talking about angles that are congruent, sides that are congruent, remembering that the word congruent means equal. So we are going to be looking at triangles and asking ourselves, are these triangles just similar or are they congruent? Now, if we have congruent figures, we must have, let me just write congruent figures, must have the same size and shape and corresponding parts must have equal measures. Corresponding parts are equal. So let's say we have got two triangles, and I'm going to draw a couple of triangles here, giving ourselves some base. These are going to be congruent triangles. Whether they are or not, we are going to look at them as if they are congruent. So we've got A, B, and C, and we've got D and E and F. And what we're going to say is that this is a right angle down here. These are right angles. Because I have called them right angles, I'm going to make congruencies, and I will be showing these congruencies by my markings. You should be familiar with the markings at this point. Okay, so here are our congruent triangles. As you can see, we've got angle C and angle F are both 90 degrees, so they are congruent. Angle A and E are showing the same congruent marks as are B and D. And then you have your side congruencies. Segment AC and EF are congruent. CB or BC is congruent to FD. And BA or AB, whatever you want to call it, is congruent to side ED. So what I can say here is that triangle, and I'm going to start with this angle. I will say triangle A, B, C. My pen is running out, so I shall not call anything for a second while I switch out pens. And I will come back and I will say that it is congruent to triangle. Now, if I start with A, then I have to start with E. Okay, then I went to B, so then I go D, and then I finished off with C, so I will go to F. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDF. I can break it apart, and I can say segment AB, so AB segment is congruent to segment ED, okay, ED. And notice how each part of this is congruent. It has to be written in the appropriate way. So angle A is congruent to angle E because they are in the same place. Ensure we have the same markings for A and E. Okay, so we could go through and we could do all of the angles, all of the sides. We are not going to do that because I think that that probably gives us enough to understand the congruencies that we are looking at. Now, we have ways of identifying these congruent triangles, and they take into consideration sides plus angles or just sides, so that we know that they are congruent if they have certain attributes. So we're going to look at first the situation where we have three sides that are congruent. So let's build our two triangles, and we'll make them as close as we possibly can to being congruent. I'm not going to be actually able to build congruent triangles, so we just say that they are. Okay, so I'm going to say that those sides are the same, and that side is the same, and this side is the same to here. This is going to be known as side, side, side. Okay, so side, side, side. If you have this situation, SSS, where each side is congruent to the side, to another side on the second triangle, these are congruent triangles, and we say it's congruent by SSS. Congruent by side, side, side. So what happens here is that if you, and I'm going to move this for a second, okay, and I'm going to take out my legs here, and let's say I've got two green sides that are congruent. I've got two yellows that are congruent, and I've got two blues that are congruent. Okay? Now, if I attach these sides so that I make triangles out of the three, and let's see, I know you're just, I mean, is this too much fun or what? Watching a video of Mrs. Basic making triangles, it's too exciting. Okay, so here you have, and let me zoom out just a little bit so that you can see this a little bit better. Here we have two congruent triangles, and as you can see, I've got this side is equal, the yellow side is equal, the blue side is equal. So by side, 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 if I place these on top of each other, they are going to be identical. Okay, so these are congruent triangles. This always happens if all three of your sides are congruent sides to each other. Okay, so it is important to understand side, side, side. Next, we're going to talk about our next one, which is side, angle, side. Okay, so zooming in just a little bit, oops, in and out. I can probably make you a little bit nauseous with my zooming in and out. I'm going to make two more triangles. And let's see, so I'll get this one here, and this one here. And we will attach it. Okay, so in this triangle, we're going to be looking at one side, the angle that they are, that is between the congruent sides. So here we're looking at two sides that are equal and an angle that is equal. So now using our angles again, what we can see is that, let's say I take the yellow out, okay, and we have these two sides that are congruent, okay. Now, if I say, well, I've got this angle and this angle, if we are going to make these angles be exactly the same, okay, so now here I have these sitting on top of each other, okay, I think we can see that. No matter what angle I make the one, okay, and if I have both of them at the same length, well, they're each going to be completed by the same length on the third side. So therefore, you can see that in this case, you can tell if you have two congruent triangles by using side, angle, side. So these are congruent triangles by SAS, and that is side, angle, side. And remember, it has to be the angle that is between the two congruent sides. Okay? And our third way to identify is by angle, side, angle. So here, and here we go again with my building of the angles. I'm not even really measuring anymore, which is kind of a problem. So we've got angle, and here's our side. So in this case, we're going to be dealing with two angles and the side that is between them. So I'm going to say these angles here, this side, and this angle here. So this is going to be angle, side, angle. So if I have two angles that are identical and a side, so let's take we'll go back to our angle legs again here, and we'll have two equal legs, okay? And I'm going to say, well, I've got my two, okay? Now, in order to have this actually form a triangle, it has to be at these certain angles. Well, if this one has the same measure angle here and the same measure angle here, well, that means that the third angle has to be the same, and the only way that you can get these to be the same is to have all the same lengths with the same angle measures. Okay? So that is how we can see angle, side, angle. So here we have angle, side, angle. And this is congruent by ASA. Okay, so what you're going to be looking for are the markings on the angles and on the sides of your triangle. What you're also going to be wanting to look for are things like this, where we are dealing with angles that you should know are congruent. Okay, so, and of course, remember, I'm just doing these quickly, but they might say, well, this side and this side, and they might just say this angle and this angle. Oops, you can't even see that. Okay, and what you have to remember is this right here, this is that vertical angle. So you've got this angle has to be congruent to that angle because these are vertical angles. So vertical angles are congruent. So they might not mark these, but you would have to know that. 90-degree angles are always congruent. So if you have an example where your triangles come off like this, okay, and they show you this and this, and then they show you this and this. Well, we know that this is going to be congruent. They share it, and then you have angle, side, angle here. So this is congruent for angle, side, angle. Here, this is also angle, side, angle. So you'll be doing some problems on that. If you have any questions, we'll start the class with questions, and hopefully you will understand it all. Okay, thanks.